graduation from high school, his goal was to get far away from home. And in 1972, he enlisted in the United States Navy. Mr. Tom Hanrath currently resides in Altoona. Prior to living in Altoona, Tom was a part of the United States Navy SEALs. He graduated from basic underwater demolition, commonly referred to as the U.S. Navy SEALs. Tom describes himself as no hero, but he has friends who are. He strongly believes in freedom. Let's welcome our keynote speaker, United States Navy SEAL, Tom Hanrath.
Thank you, Ron. Representative from Moulton, Representative Smith, Senator Whitehouse, Representative Kine. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow veterans, and children of all ages, welcome this morning. I can't tell you how proud and humble I was when I was asked to come and speak with you today for those that no longer have a voice or are serving us presently in the armed services. Thank you for taking the time today to honor your fellow service volunteers who displayed selfless dedication and who were willing to pay the ultimate price so that we could live our lives in freedom today. And when I say freedom, I don't mean just freedom for the United States. Our fight is for every man, woman, and child in every country, in every land. I believe the Lord's intention was that every child should be able to wake up in the morning and have the right to choose something as simple as the type of cereal for breakfast or what they dream to become for a lifetime. When I was a little boy, I thought the neatest job would be to be the President of the United States. Somehow through time and growing up, that job doesn't look as neat as it did when I was in 3rd grade. I had other aspirations though, and one was to be a frogman. I can still remember playing in Lake Michigan at my grandma's house with my sister Susan. There were these pipes sticking up out of the water, and we pretended to place demolition on the target and then dove backwards in the wave, enacting the explosion. Kaboom! Boy, that was fun. But little did I know that I would have the privileged test to become one day. I went through BUDS, Basic Underwater SEAL Training, in 1975, Class 81. There were some 80 individuals that started our class, and 11 of us, 7 months later, would graduate. Freedom of choice allowed me to stretch further than I knew I could reach. Let me tell you, there were some mighty tough and challenging days during that training. Most of the days I don't even remember because they were so bad. I've also enjoyed fixing things and making them work all my life. It probably started when I bought a double-engine go-kart when I was 11 years old with my paper route money. It went about 60 miles an hour, and I made sure to give everyone a ride in the neighborhood so that no one would call the cops on me while I tore up the streets. As a child, I had every toy a child with freedom could want. Bicycles, radios, toy airplanes, cars, trains. I was given a chance to be a kid and a chance to grow up to be a man. When I see the eyes of the children around the world, I see too few with a sparkle and a smile on their faces. They have no chance at childhood if they must learn to field strip an AK-47 by the time they're 9 years old. There was a gentleman who would perform at our potluck at church because I was intrigued by magic as a child also. All the children would gather around him in awe. We must never forget the images we portray as individuals because little eyes are always watching. And we are molding our society every day by the way we volunteer and support one another or turn a deaf ear. Again, little did I know that I would have the fortune to meet 2 professional magicians in Philadelphia years later. And under their wings, I would go on to perform for some 20 years. And a little boy who liked to fix things when he was a little kid, he had the freedom to learn how to fix biomedical electronics and repair everything from open heart bypass pumps to monitoring and laboratory instrumentation, and make a decent living for myself and my family doing it. You know, when I enlisted in the Navy back in 1972, my recruiter, who as we know now knew everything as far as I was concerned, told me to never volunteer for anything. Just be a little mouse and find a corner to hide in. Well, I think that's the way a lot of us live our lives. Don't stand up for anything. Who needs confrontation? Well, I did just the opposite. I volunteered for everything. Who wants to sweep the hangar? I will. Who wants to take out the garbage? Hanrath will. Who wants to jump out of a perfectly good airplane? I will. Well, some of my volunteering was smarter than others. I believe we have to stop waiting for someone else to stand up. We, you and I, must be the first to raise our hands. This is one country where we can smile, donating our time to the community and knowing it's money in the bank. I've had the privilege to perform a Veterans Day program for the last 7 or so years at Altoona Elementary School. Usually it's kindergarten through 4th grade, at times up to 500 children. I show them overheads of some of my heroes, and I tell them quite frankly that I'm not one. But the children are pretty impressed with the picture of Mike Thornton, Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, who's a personal friend of mine, with all his medals on his chest. Or John Hagan, the 8th Master Chief of the Navy, who was my first class in the electronics shop when I was on Underwater Demolition Team 21. But the message I try to convey is that as small as I am, I stand for something much, much bigger, and that is freedom. I tell them that I would kill for it, and I would die for it. It's just that important. Without freedom of individual choice, nothing else matters. With it, we can talk about our problems and find solutions. The number one question they ask me is, did I ever kill anyone? And I tell them quite honestly, I was fortunate enough to not have to. But I have friends who have. And even knowing it was for the right cause, freedom, looking into another man's eyes and eliminating him before he gets you or one of your buddies, can never be easy to live with. On the other hand, I got to save a man's life. While being a military police detached from SEAL Team 1, a soldier stopped breathing right in front of me. So I gave him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and brought him back to life. How cool is that? I've got the children's attention when I tell them the story of my double malfunction on my 3rd parachute jump in Fort Benning, Georgia. But of course, when I lose the students' attention because my message about patriotism is too heavy, it's time for me to say, hey kids, how about a magic trick? And oh, you should see the excitement in their eyes. And then of course I have their focus again for about, another 3 minutes. Then it's time for another magic trick. We say the Pledge of Allegiance before the program, and when we are done, they all single-filely walk out and shake my hand one at a time and say things like, thank you, Mr. Hanrath, for saving our country. And weren't you scared when both your parachutes failed? But mostly, they remember the magic tricks, which I had the freedom to learn and perform for them. There are 3 segments of time as a society we must keep in mind. First is our history. Our parents and grandparents and what they did before us to give the next generation a better life. I thank you now for all that you did before me, so I could grow up to be whatever I wanted to be. Your convictions and loyalty must never be forgotten. We must listen to our elders and learn from our past. The second time is the present. This is the only true time for action. We have been chosen to be the symbol of defender of freedom for the world. Don't just sit there and expect someone else to stand up for the cause. We must all take responsibility and accountability for the ambassadorship we have inherited. The third is our futures. We only need to look in the eyes of our children to see the hope or the despair that we are nurturing. We must always remember and think about the next generation as the previous generation thought of us. Our trials and tribulations may be tough, but no tougher than those posed to those last. Those that preceded us gave no thought to their own lives, because of the gift they were handing down was priceless. Yes, you see, it's all about the children. Do we offer them a chance to be their best every day, or do we give them no hope for their future? You know, I had the pleasure of hearing a woman speak at a SEAL team reunion breakfast served several years ago in Little Creek, Virginia. Her name is Mary Baracco. She told of her childhood and how at 18 as a French resistor, she was turned into the Nazis by one of her neighbors. She was beaten, forced sterilized, and raped for several years by the enemy. She had written on the wall, "Goodbye, Mama, I will never see you again." But then she saw the American fighters through the bars of her cell. She knew she would be saved by the Americans. I've got to tell you, when she was speaking, I was sitting at a table with past SEAL team instructors, Rear Admiral Richards, and fellow SEAL team members, and the tears were flowing down my cheek like waterfalls. I didn't try to stop them. You see, my tears represent my strength, not my weakness. I didn't feel embarrassed or inhibited by displaying my emotions, because no human being should ever be put through the torture that she was put through. And I am willing to die until the last day I'm on this earth, so that no one is ever abused like that again. I've got to tell you that the smile on Mary Baracco's face is so large and giving, you would never know or guess what she had been put through. Her final words were, "We must never lose our liberté, because it's worth my life and it's worth yours. We must continue to plant the seeds of peace and freedom, even if it's sometimes an infertile ground. Someday the ground will become fertile, and the seeds will already be there to flourish." So how do we pay back the past generation and say thank you to those brave individuals who are defending us as we speak freely today? I believe they would say that they have been repaid in full, just by us living our lives with the freedom they were willing to die for. And we must never forget. And to raise our families with good core values and morals, and be an active part of your community, would say it all. So everyone, and celebrate the rest of your Memorial Day, eat more ice cream, laugh and smile freely, because we live in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America.
Damn right!
Thank you, Tom. I hope you will enjoy Eau Claire North's rendition of Armed Forces Salute, the Eau Claire North Band under the direction of Mr. Robert Power. What Director Power just mentioned, if you hear your particular song